Welcome back to Calvary Life. This is the podcast of Calvary Baptist Church. We are here, exist to help ourselves become a better church. Right, Paul?
3 weeks hiatus on this, and so I guess we've been pondering. We've been handling some weighty stuff, but yeah, our aim is to always be in a healthier church and being more faithful Christians, and hopefully we'll say some things that are beneficial to the church at large, capital C, church in our community, and other churches like ours. So we exist for God's glory. We exist for this city. We exist for the church, and so we want to promote those things. So we got a special guest today. One of our brothers, one of our pastors in Dothan. This pastor of Cloverdale Baptist Church, Bryan. Alan, welcome. Thanks for coming and talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
I told Alan before we started, these are unplanned, unrehearsed, unscripted conversations. So I know you're only getting the audio, but if you can see, we have no notes in front of us. So all the profound things that you hear are going to be off the cuff.
Straight out of our brains. All we got is a bottle of water, and we're ready to go.
Just on the fly. Alan, here, maybe set this up for us a little bit. Tell us a little bit of the Cloverdale story since you've been there. I know you told me 8 years now, which, man, I can't believe that. Time flies.
Yeah.
You've served in big church and more urban areas, North Carolina, and I know your roots go back here. So tell us a little bit about how you came to Cloverdale and what brought you back to the Wiregrass, where you were before that, and all that. Just kind of give us a little backstory.
Well, you're a big piece in that, as I've shared before, but some people may not have heard. We moved to North Carolina to go to Southeastern Seminary to work on my MDiv, and we finished school there, and through the course of school, we ended up serving in a church, Richland Creek Community Church, and it saw a lot of growth from about 1,500 to 3,000 people in that time, and so we got a lot of seminary experience, but real church growth experience too, good and bad, a lot of good stuff.
What kind of church was Richland? Was it multiple campus?
It was one campus.
One big campus.
We had 4 services on Sunday morning, and we started one on Sunday night, and it was in a booming area in Wake Forest, right there near the seminary. And at that time, and it may still be, Wake Forest was one of the fastest growing cities in America. So it was really neat. It was a joy. It was some of the best years of our life.
What was your role there primarily?
I came on while I was in school as a middle school director, then middle school pastor, then student pastor, and then toward the end, I was one of the executive pastors, pastor of ministry leadership. And so I oversaw not just age-graded ministries like a next-gen guy, but some other things as well. And I thought that's what, we were going to settle in there for the long haul. We loved it. We loved it up there. But we came home. I don't remember what time of year it was, but we came to church with TC, my wife's mother, and you're their pastor, and I've heard about this new pastor, and we came, and I heard you preaching, and I could not believe just that I was hearing good biblical exposition, the gospel clearly articulated. And not that there aren't other churches like that, but there was a crispness and precision that you had that I didn't think existed in my hometown. And I sat there and I was just moved, wow, thank you, Lord, that there's a church that's handling God's word with such faithfulness and clarity. It was awesome to me. As I sat through that service, I got to crying, just feeling convicted. And I think after we left that day moving on, I think the Lord used you and your faithfulness in the pulpit that day to stir up a heart in me and the way I would describe it is I wanted to come home. I believe in indigenous pastors, and I'm a WTVY guy, born and raised here.
What church did you grow up in?
Bethel Baptist Church. My whole life with Wallace Russell. And even Ricky Plummer over there had to put up with me through my teenage years.
But you got connections at Memphis too, right? Did you serve there?
First church I ever served at was at Memphis Baptist Church as their youth minister.
Gotcha.
And those were, I've never been loved by a church like Memphis loved me and my family. We loved Memphis.
And was Jim the pastor then?
No, but we prayed. We had cottage prayer meeting back then every Monday night, and we prayed for the next pastor because we knew Ernest O'Neill would be retiring. There would be a search. He finished well, but that's big shoes to fill. He'd 30-plus year tenure there. And we prayed, and I believe Jim Tate has answered all those prayers back
Jim's
then.
been there a while now, too.
He sure has.
I don't know how many
in
years.
the teens of years, I don't know, 13, 15. I think the world of Brother Jim. But either way, I just, I felt a desire that I didn't initially have to come home and just be one more faithful man in my hometown. I had a friend here who's an unbeliever. He was lost, and I always thought if he got saved, where would I send him to go to church where I knew he would be discipled and he would grow and not just thrown into the congregation to tolerate services, And anyway, I just kind of flushed that and was just proud for those of you who are down here doing a good job. And
so you're feeling that tug down here, but you didn't have someplace in specific. I mean, there was nothing in front of you.
No, and for 2 years I wrestled with that. And I looked around on our staff. We had seminary professors who were on staff as well. And I just looked at our staff, and it was such a stacked staff. Any one of those men could leave and go serve and pastor a church and do a phenomenal job. And I just increasingly felt like this church doesn't need me, but there are churches at home without a pastor, and I had a desire to fill that role. And so for about 2 years, we prayed through that and wrestled through it. And it's actually kind of strange. It's probably the craziest thing we've done following the Lord. We felt led to move back home, but not with a church lined up. Typically you swing from one branch to another, kind of have something lined up before you move. But for the sake of time, I'll just say the Lord made it clear that we were to move, but we didn't have anything. There was nothing lined up, and I can't explain it.
So what'd you do when you came? Did you just start working? Was TC working?
Well, so I talked with our senior pastor about it in January of 2017, and I said, I feel like the Lord's leading us to do this. And I sounded crazy then. It sounds even crazier now. And I said, we're going to sell our house. We're going to move back home in June. Didn't have anything lined up. We would look, but nothing lined up. And I would never do that. That's insane. That's not responsible. If my daughters marry a man who does that, I'm going to sit him down and we're going to talk about that. That's ridiculous. But I knew, and I don't know how to explain it, and so did my wife. And so we...
Yeah, it wasn't rash. I mean, at least it wasn't rushed. I mean, you've been praying through this for 2 years.
We listed our house. It sold the first day we listed it.
So you knew there was no turning back now.
But back in January, I said, Lord, just this does not seem wise. And I prayed, and I said, Lord, I don't know if this is right or not, but just help my big old chicken heart. I need some kind of sign that this is not just me in my own head, but you really are in this. And I said, Lord, I'm just going to pick something random, but just on June 1st, I pray that you would just confirm in our heart that we would know where we're going, because this is terrifying. Doesn't feel responsible. We got 4 kids.
Yeah.
It's not good. So that was in January, and I just picked June 1st. And I said, Lord, just for my sake.
So you're going to let the kids finish out that school year?
And then we were going to move in that transition. It seemed like a good window for them. June 1st came. I had no idea where we were going. The whole day went, had no idea where we were going. And then that night, Eastern time, it was about 9:30, my phone rang. It was a Dothan number. I didn't know it. And so I didn't answer it. I don't answer numbers I don't know because there's a million of them. And I didn't answer it. And then I got to thinking, well, something could be wrong with my parents. It could be the neighbor calling. I might need to call back and just check, make sure it's okay. So I called that number back. And the man answered. I said, did I just miss a call from this number? And he said, yeah, this is Greg Goolsby on the personnel committee at Cloverdale Baptist Church.
Holy cow, it gives me chills.
And
does your church know all this story?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Man.
And he said, we are in need of pulpit supply. Would you be available to fill the pulpit the first Sunday in July? Well, we're moving home the last week of June, so we would move here that weekend. And so I stepped into the pulpit the first Sunday in July just as supply, and I've been there ever since.
And God didn't leave you hanging at all, not even a week.
It's the craziest thing, but he was faithful. And I never missed a Sunday at a church. I never had a Sunday that I wasn't serving. So it was.
That's a pretty amazing story right there.
I believe with all my heart the Lord called us to Cloverdale. And another thing, the desire of my heart is to have a long tenure. I grew up at Bethel. Wallace Russell was our pastor. he's the only pastor I ever knew. I remember when I started growing chin hair, he'd pick at me about it. Just he was always my pastor.
Did you know him? Did you know these guys and these names?
Oh yeah.
Been there was he there a long time, I guess? Long time?
Yeah,
yeah.
30. I mean, I would say just legendary. He was a local Adrian Rogers, just.
And now Ricky's been there for, I don't know everybody's timeline, but longer than I've been here.
Yeah, he's been there
20 years?
Close to 20, maybe. A little under 20, maybe.
Yeah,
somewhere over there.
approaching it. Yeah,
Okay.
and Ricky was on staff some then too.
Yeah.
And I loved Ricky. I always thought the world of him, and it's great to see him filling Brother Russell's shoes. But still, I think there's value in tenure. I think you can accomplish things in tenure that you just can't if you're always starting over.
So when you stepped in on that Sunday in pulpit supply, I'm guessing you really didn't know much of what you were stepping into. Didn't know the church really. Did you know much of Cloverdale? Or
no, I didn't initially. But as they, through that month of June, I'm trying to find out more. I knew people who had been there, things like that, and there were connections, just friendships and things like that. But interestingly, what the Lord had laid on my heart in North Carolina was revitalization. Not just churches that need a pastor, but churches that need revitalization. They need to break an unhealthy cycle.
how long had Ray McKenzie been gone when you stepped in for pulpit supply? What was the gap?
I think he left maybe in March, and I was there
so still relatively
in July.
new. I mean, it hadn't been that long.
That's right, just a few months maybe. But so it wasn't just an opportunistic thing, but it was what the Lord had given us conviction for is revitalization. Well, Cloverdale at the time had lost their pastor, had no staff. All the staff was gone.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not sure what all happened before I came, but they had a mess, and even there were people who said, "Hey, you need to be careful easing into that. Need to be careful." And the more they cautioned about just you need to know what you're getting into, the more it confirmed it in my heart is revitalization. This is not just a church that needs a pastor; it's a church that needs pastoral leadership.
Yeah, a sense of assignment, real assignment.
Exactly. Yeah, it was exactly what was on our heart to come pour our life into and be a part of, and maybe break a cycle and create some stability through right theology, ecclesiology in particular, but then just tenure, just time together, where it's not so easy to always start over, but we'll stick things out, make it work, and do it according to God's word, not tradition or old patterns and things like that.
You know, from our perspective, of course, just like you, we're super busy in our own church and don't really have time to know everything or even much about what's going on in other churches sometimes. But from an outside perspective looking in, it looks like Cloverdale is a resurgent church. I mean, I've said here, to our people, and when people ask me, if I'm not a member at Calvary, where am I likely to go? I say I'd likely go to Cloverdale. And we recommend people there too, as well. But and tell us kind of what you face going in. Obviously, these are your people now, so you can't. I'm not going to ask you to speak negatively about your own people. But I mean, kind of big picture. You don't have to attach names to it or anything. But like, what'd you face big picture going in?
Well, they're probably the sweetest church I've been a part of in terms of friendliness, kindness. If you're a guest and you come there, you're going to be welcomed and you're going to be loved on. Great people. But after 18 months, about that two-year mark,
had there been a fairly high turnover rate in the past? Pastors, short tenures.
Yeah, they had a pastor back in the 80s, Henry Johnson. He was there 15 years. And the church had a church split back in the 80s. And I think it set something in the DNA of Cloverdale that just
was that over theology or
I think there was some kind
direction?
Of charismatic movement that came through and divided the church, something of that nature. And but either way, I think something changed then, because after Brother Henry in the 80s, there were two pastors who were there for just a little over 6 years, and everybody else was in the 3 to 4 window. Okay. And it'd run, the honeymoon would end, the pastor would endure for a year or two, and the Lord would call him somewhere else. And so there's just no long tenures. But
of course, that makes any substantive change much harder for the next person coming in, because it tends to create that feeling like, look, we were here when you got here, we'll be here when you leave.
exactly.
We've done that before. We tried that. Everything.
In
has
all
to run
of
through
that
that lens.
Yeah, in all of that, you have good men who stand up and hold things together and take care of the flock and do a good job in some of those ways to just keep things going the best they know how. But almost accidentally, pastors just turn into disposable pieces. But we've got this. Yeah. And just with each cycle, that solidifies
just reinforces
more and more.
it, yeah.
And so I ran into some of that. And I didn't realize it early on. But, you could read Constitution bylaws, all these kind of things, and it sounds solid. Like, man, they're thinking, well, we've got a lot to work with here. That was on paper, but not in minds and hearts. It's just what I called the good old boy network, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I mean those men who are always there for the people would control things no matter what decision was made. And so that was... I didn't realize it early on, but as we went through, like, where's the rub? These are the nicest people in the world. I desire to be here and be a good pastor and love them. I don't understand where the friction's coming from. And this is the first time I've ever been a senior pastor. Been in ministry over 20 years now, but these last 8 are the only ones I've spent as a senior pastor. And so I was a little slow to identify kind of the root of it. But at the end of the day, there was just a difference of understanding of church polity. And I don't know that they would even know what the word polity means. But in my mind, we understood that a pastor is a gift from God who provides leadership. He's not a dictator. He's not a king or anything like that, but he provides leadership. He equips the saints to do the work of ministry. Hey, follow my lead. Let's go. And we don't move forward without each other. I told him when I came, I said, my desire is just like in my marriage. It's not enough to be right. We've got to be wise. I don't want to make a decision that TC is not at peace with. I may be right, but if she's not ready, the timing's not right. We're going to wait on each other. And when we're ready, we'll take a step together. And I don't want her to move forward without me. And I said, as a church, I want us to wait on one another and move forward that way. And so I thought, let's just do that. Let's just wait on each other. But as it turns out, and again, I don't think it's in a malicious way, but just kind of stinking thinking on an accident. Pastors are good for preaching, caring for the folks, and nobody ever said this, but I think the assumption is, and it benefits us, it brings people and money into the church so we can keep going. But when it comes to making decisions or direction or change or whatever we're going to do, the pastor is hired. You do what we hired you to do. We'll do this part. So you step aside and we'll decide. And I was operating thinking, hey, here's what the Lord's laying on my heart. Here's what we're doing. And they were offended by that. Well, that's a dictator. I'm thinking, no, it's just a pastor. And through some conflict, I think we identified that. And so we took some time to go through church polity. And I took them through the book of 5 Views on Church Government. I can't remember all of them.
Interesting. Maybe you could give some counsel this way to some of the, and I don't know who's listening ever, but I hope this will reach out to some, but some maybe younger guys just starting up in senior pastor kind of ministry, that one of the unspoken keys, I think, is it's not just the teaching and it's not just the backbone, the spine, all those things are necessary. Sometimes it's just the time, like sticking it out.
Yeah.
Will you stick out these difficulties? 'Cause I fear sometimes, you've been there 8 years, you've talked about your desire for longevity. I think part of the problem younger guys face when they're starting in ministry is they won't weather the storm long enough. Mm-hmm. And so it ends up beating them because they leave before they can get to the other side of it. I think sometimes just some time put in to it. So when you came in, and we talk about this kind of generically, but really I guess the concept is culture. I mean, every church has got its culture.
Right.
And we talk about that all the time here. There's, like you said, it may not be what's on paper, but it's what's real. It's beneath the surface. It's the unspoken rules and expectations, and it's who defers to who and who has the influence and that sort of thing. And changing culture is a long long-running process for sure. But you also have some other challenges coming in because you're really starting from scratch in terms of building a team.
Yep.
Right. So you come in, and so where do you go from there? What do you start? What pieces do you start putting together?
Well, through the interim piece.
How long was that? How long was the interim before it became an official?
I think it was October when they called me to be the permanent long-term.
Okay, but there was never a gap between when you started preaching and then.
No, it just kind of went from supply to interim to permanent.
Gotcha.
In that window, they hired a part-time youth minister. He's a good guy, good hire. But I
was doing it in the way they used to do it, like so kind of apart from you.
Just what? Yeah, that's right. I didn't have any input, and at that time, I wasn't that guy to have that input. I was just interim,
Gotcha.
So I didn't have a voice. But I remember when they did that, thinking, I would love to come in first, feel things out, and let's see our needs and make sure we're getting the right fit, not just filling a spot.
Right.
And then we had an interim minister of music. He stayed for a little while, and we looked for a minister of music. And I'm telling you, getting staff developing a staff has been really hard. It was easy in Wake Forest, North Carolina, right there in Seminary Town. You've got pick of the litter. And
we talk about that a little bit with us. We've got some church staff needs that'll be coming up, and I think every church has a sense of itself. Maybe many churches have an inflated sense of their own attractiveness and everything. And there are some areas that people want to be in, and some areas where there are lots of possible candidates. And you're in that whole research triangle area up there, and everything's growing. Yeah. It's the fastest growing part of the state, and really in the southeast. And it's a different animal.
Really attractive church to be a part of. But down here,
new neighborhoods, new schools, new opportunities. Good incomes.
But and so we've had some. We had a minister of music who came on with us. He was with us for 4 years. Good run. I really needed him. He blessed our church tremendously, especially through COVID. I'd never been through anything like that, and I'm not tech savvy.
What did you guys do? Short version.
With
season,
COVID, learned how to do videos. Me and our minister of music, we would record or do Facebook Live and did our services that way. And then after the first month or so, we started doing church on the softball field. They had a field out, and that went pretty good. And then we started meeting together.
That's a good alternative than just being on a screen.
But it was really hard on him. He had never done anything like this, and he did a phenomenal job. I don't think he felt like he did because, when you're the one doing it, you feel the weight of it. But us watching him, he kept us afloat. He did a really good job. But we have not just a polity problem that we had to kind of work through and teach through and train through, but we also have a deteriorating campus. They've got a big campus. They got a lot of buildings, but they are just all aging, and everything is just needing repairs faster than possible. Our lights went out in the sanctuary. It's $100,000 to redo all of that. And that's a lot for our church. And then we've got AC units that are, even some now, that are still 1992, and somehow they're still running. And there's just a mountain.
Oh yeah,
I
think people don't understand sometimes. If you think your own home calls, we've been through all those. We've been through the lighting, the ACs,
all that.
And it just always
massive
is one
ticket
step.
items.
Yeah, and it changes all your plans.
Now you're talking about the polity of the church and what's written and what's unwritten. But have you rewritten anything? Is anything different now officially? Like are there new bylaws?
We've got new bylaws.
Statements?
We revised them back in 2018, but we just redid them entirely. Last year. I think it was last year we finalized that. I lose track of the time, but it reflects. I don't mean this in the wrong way, but it reflects kind of my DNA, my vision for how I want our church. And it's not just me. I think our staff. It reflects our heart for where we're going.
And the church has embraced that.
They have. Now through all of this, we've had two things over the 8 years where there was a somewhat of a protest of people who took their ball and left and went and took some people with them. And one thing that I never considered, you always say a church always ends up looking like its pastor. A church sounds like its pastor, looks like its pastor. And I think that's true, but I never realized that part of the reason that is those who don't agree, don't want to look like that or think like that or go that direction, inevitably will just leave and go somewhere else. And that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad people, but there may be a church that fits their thinking better than ours, but this is where we're going.
Did you have a trickling exodus? Did you have whole groups going? We could talk about that. We could do a whole podcast on church exoduses.
How people leave.
Yeah.
People do not know how to leave well in general. It doesn't always have to be because something's wrong. Sometimes it's time to change just for a variety of reasons. But no, we've had two major times where there's a disagreement.
So you can pinpoint it to a situation or an issue.
Yeah. And just handled it poorly, misrepresenting leadership and things like that, and spinning some narratives to justify how they feel about being on the wrong side of something. And it's just not been good for us. So we had a lot of momentum going into COVID. Really good. I felt like, man, this is really going well. And then that falls off. Well, we did well getting along through COVID. Coming out of that, it was good. And then you started getting a little bit of power struggle, and some of that did not go well. And I thought about leaving at that point. I was like, maybe for the sake of peace, I just need to just look for somewhere else, because I did not come here to hurt the church. That is certainly not my desire. But the Lord called us there, and I just, deep conviction, if I did not know that the Lord called us to serve at Cloverdale, I probably would have just looked for something else just for the sake of peace. But the Lord called us here for revitalization, to do the hard things and to stick it out. And so we weathered that storm.
And one thing I've heard you say, I've heard you say it from the pulpit, and I've heard you say it to me. You've talked about it. I think this is a real key. And tell me if I'm wrong here. Don't your people perceive too that you really love them?
Yes.
I think
they know I do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. You may not agree with me, or
That's
you
right.
may not, see it this same way, or want to do it like this. But I think that's been a key for you.
Mm-hmm. And and there's so many churches like this that they are held back by good people that would do anything for you. And, they're the same person they've always been, but they want the church to stay the same as it's always been. And, you think, well, there's no sacred cows, and then you find one. And I don't know. I'm still learning.
What are some of the big victories you guys have had in 8 years, you'd say? I would say the bylaw change and embracing that, a change of polity and constitution is a pretty big.
Polity is huge. I think our people are on board. We're pastors-led, elders-led, committee-supported, deacon-served, congregationally governed. And that is beginning to click and understand the process. Even in terms of church discipline, I see our church beginning to understand what that is and what that isn't. And even in that polity model, it reflects small groups working out. So if it's a decision, we start at the pastoral level, and if we can't sync up there, we're not going to go to the next level. When it goes to the next level, if we can't sync up there, we'll hit pause, and we don't move out to those larger circles until we're there. Whether it's church discipline or decisions, we take each step in a unified way, and I think our church gets that. And I would say this, too, in terms of victory. When those two difficult times came, when push comes to shove, our lay leadership said, we're going to stand with our pastor. And that's hard. That was not easy to do. And our people have said, you know what, we're going to stand with our pastor. And some of them say, hey, we're going to stand, but we don't understand, but we trust you. Help us understand, and we want to help them understand. So that's going well. Another thing is, biblical illiteracy. I've tried to teach our people about the prosperity gospel, cultural, nominal Christianity, whatever you want to call it, poor hermeneutics, all that glitters is not Christian, beware, beware, beware. And I think our people are learning how to handle God's word with good hermeneutics, reading it in a way that's faithful to the text.
Is most of that coming through how you're preaching and how you're explaining how you're preaching, or what they're seeing that, or do you have some other support ways? You have some other, is this happening in smaller groups, or?
Well, I would say it. So I think it started with expository preaching. There were some when I first came who were like, "Oh, expository preaching, that's so boring. Oh, I don't know about this." And fortunately, they've seen exposition doesn't have to be boring. I think that may have been the preacher, not the style.
Yeah. We can be boring for sure, but you're right. I wouldn't blame the style necessarily.
But then
That'd be a cop out.
We came on Wednesday night. I really struggled to figure out what's our Wednesday night identity like. And what I do is I'll project a passage of scripture on a board, and we'll do observation, interpretation, application. And I say, "What do you see? What do you see?
You're teaching
what
them.
Do you see?"
You're teaching them and teaching them how to teach themselves.
Mm-hmm. And some caught on to this early on, but I feel like if you grabbed our average person in our church, and quizzed them about how they read or understand a passage of scripture, I think you would pick up on some good hermeneutics in them. I think they would be able to say, "Hey, whatever the author's intent was to the original audience is what we're looking for." And then from there, we could talk about what does it mean, how does it apply, and work our way out. And I'm so proud of our people, just that biblical maturity of how to handle God's word. And our Sunday school teachers, we've got some excellent ones who model that well, even in class. But there's more discussion in there than lecture.
What are you guys seeing in terms of leadership development, like raising up leaders that might be like you one day, go out of here? I mean, are you seeing this? Are you seeing some potential?
Yes. It's really cool. And I just think if you wash people with the water of the word, God, as they grow, you see those gifts begin to pop. And so that's a passion of mine. It's just raising up pastors and developing pastors, men who are at least gifted and maybe called. And so we have one guy, we just brought him on staff as our youth minister, or interim youth minister. Hopefully it will turn into more than that, but he has surrendered to the ministry. He and I would have theology lunches on Thursday, and we would study all kind of things together.
He emerged from within your church?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sure did. And he's attending school at Southeastern Seminary now, and he's doing great at that. And so we've been able to bring him on staff. We've got a couple of others that feel a call to biblical counseling. And so one of those, a lady in our church has started the counseling program at Midwestern. Really proud to see her up there. I think that school's got some great things happening. And we have some others who are expressing a desire to teach, and you can see those things. And, we're supposed to stir one another up to love and good works. And as you watch your people and you watch them grow, you're always looking like, what's God made them to do? How's he gifted this person? How's their heartbeat? They may not realize it, but sometimes you see it. And I can't go say, you need to be a preacher, but you see something and you're like, But it may not be a preacher. It may be somebody who has just a heart for outreach that works just here at the local level. They don't need to change their vocation, but we need to, I see a flicker, we need to fan that in the flame. Yeah. And it's happening. People are beginning to have ownership in just a variety of areas. We got some teachers in the pipeline kind of coming. So it's fun. It's fun to watch new things begin to sprout.
See it begin to develop. What would you say you guys, like what's a big target area for you, for the church right now? Like what's a big aim this year? You got something that's like, this is what we're pushing for right now. We want to see this happen.
Well, not just this year. So I'll answer it broadly then specifically. I want to reach our immediate neighborhood, and
What's the neighborhood like? How do you describe it?
Rough. If you go more than 4 blocks, it could be a little dangerous if you're there at the wrong time. You got good people in there. retired people in there, people in transition, just great. But you've got some not so good people in there too, whether it be drugs or some just mental stuff going on. That's you just got to be really careful. It's a changing neighborhood. A lot of the people who live there, so we do monthly neighborhood outreach.
How do you do that?
We go out once a month. We break up in teams. We'll have like 5 teams. We'll cook meals, and we'll just break up. Each team has a stretch of street, a stretch of houses.
This is right in your neighborhood. These are your neighbors.
Mm-hmm. We walk from our parking lot to them. Same team, same houses every week. And so we take meals to them, and whether they want them or not, they're really good at meals. And we're like, hey, we want to give you a meal. Just want to talk to you.
People are good at receiving them. I mean, they.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Anything we can pray for you about, and then we pray.
So they're meeting these same people, and they're getting to know names. This is the Smiths, or this is the
Absolutely.
Johnson family, or whatever.
We've reached a couple doing that, but it's hard because what you do it once a month, and then we did it on the last Friday of every month, and then we changed it and did it on the last Wednesday of every month. And our senior adults who can't walk would stay and pray for us while we went out.
So how's the church doing in general, crossing some of those diversity lines, racial, social?
Pretty good.
I mean, do you see people coming?
Yes, 100% coming and being welcomed. But my ultimate goal is to see our church reflect our community. Whatever the community looks like, I want that to be what our
When you came there, were the majority of people that were real active in the church, were they coming from outside the community, or had they moved away from the immediate neighborhood? I
think that's a unique thing too. So we had polity type stuff, you got building and campus type stuff, you got a changing neighborhood. I mean, it's typical. But also the people who were lifers, been at Cloverdale their whole life, they live. We've got people from Midland City, Ozark coming, some early on like Camelton coming up that way, just coming from everywhere. So we don't have
an identifiable.
We don't have. I mean,
wasn't really a community church. Wasn't a neighborhood church.
It's not people who live near the church, and so that's odd. And they don't live near the church, for some reasons. And even so, with the neighborhood outreach, though, you'd go a month or two, and then the third month, those people weren't there anymore because it's rental houses. Gotcha. And so it's really hard to get traction there. Yeah. But we've been able to share the gospel. We've seen some people get saved. We had one man who was an atheist, didn't want to hear anything. I don't like whatever we cook, don't like it. And one of our guys at the time said, what do you like? Well, I like chicken. So the next month they went, we cooked something else, but they cooked chicken just for this man, and it was good. And he said, I told you I don't like that mess. He said, you told me you like chicken, and he gave him this chicken, and he's like, and he tried it. He said, man, this is pretty good. So he started talking to him. And then that man came, started bringing peanut butter and jelly for the Vacation Bible School. I just want to be a part of helping those kids. But he wasn't interested. And anyway, he I don't know if he ever got saved in the thing, but he ended up passing away. And his daughter had his phone and was going through his phone, and some of the last contacts he had was with the team leader that would go out where they had been talking. And she said, she called him and said, hey, I just want you to know so-and-so passed away. But thank y'all for ministering to him and being so good to him. But you could see that man come to life. And I hope maybe there's a thief on the cross moment where
you pray for that. That's true.
Something happened we didn't know about.
Right.
But still, you could see receptivity begin to change. And so it's challenging. And with our church, I don't know if we'll ever reach them. But we can always minister to them. Right. We can always be the church. And you know the old saying, if your church disappeared overnight, would your community know that you're not there? I really think our immediate neighbors would miss us.
Yeah, and I really feel like, not that this is an excuse for anything for not being successful, but it really is, I hate to use cliche terms, it really is about being faithful. And your church is not a faithful church if it doesn't care about the people around it.
Yeah. That's right.
If you're just trying to set up shop or, create a program that's attractive to other people outside your community, but you have no involvement. Mm-hmm. Even if you're never really successful, whatever that looks like, I just think that's just a necessary. We're going to keep doing this. We're not going to stop doing this.
That's right. And So that's
and
broad.
if not your church, if not your people, who?
Yeah.
Nobody.
That's right. But more specifically, this year I've challenged my people just in personal evangelism. There was a season where we would kind of, in North Carolina, we would overmake the point that an invitation to church is not the same thing as sharing the gospel. Absolutely true. We don't need to use that as a crutch or a cop-out to not proclaim the gospel. But I think we snatched the wheel and probably overcorrected on that a little bit. There's still a tremendous amount of value in saying, hey, you should come to church with me. Yeah. And not always swinging for the fences, but taking what you can get. And so what we're doing is pushing our people. Who are you praying for? There's friends, family, coworkers that needs to be saved. Are you being faithful in opportunities to share the gospel with them? Like, to the degree they can accept it or reject it. Be clear with the gospel, not vague. But if you can't get that, keep praying. But you can always invite somebody. Hey, you should come. Where do you go to church? You should come to church. And our folks are doing such a good job on that, too. That's so good. I'm proud of their heart for the lost and their neighbors.
How do you help your folks overcome that perception? It kind of seems to be a little bit ingrained that, everybody I know goes to church somewhere. Or everybody's a Christian around here.
Yeah. So my kids struggle with that. My people struggle with that. I think that's the hardest thing in the Bible Belt. Is everybody? Yeah. I think I told you one time because they're. I probably shouldn't say that. I think I'll speak for the culture generally. I'm not saying they're not exceptions, but I'm not a Democrat, not a Muslim. I'm a Christian. I'm not talking about some position you hold. Yeah. I'm talking about what's true, and if the gospel's true, then we can't continue to live in sin. But sharing the gospel gets really difficult there because you have people that are so agreeable, so positive, encouraging, and uplifting, and they're agreeing with you and living in open sin, and you come to a point, especially if it's a stranger, where you almost start a fight with them to convince them they're not saved, so they'll listen to you about what you're saying. And I don't know that everybody's looking for a fight every day. I don't think that's wise, and so that's very difficult.
It's difficult, but helping our people understand the numbers don't bear out what the people are telling you. You know what I'm saying? You get out there and you talk to people, and I go to such and such a church, or I go to church. Now the numbers around here don't bear that out. I mean, they may have some loose affiliation, some former contact with. I bump into people all the time that I'll meet or I'll talk to or invite church. You go to church anywhere? Yeah, I go to Calvary. They don't go to Calvary. I haven't been here in years. So I said, what, do you know the pastor? I can't remember his name.
You're talking to
I've literally had those conversations. But, I mean, just remind our folks, numbers don't bear that out. Yeah. They may say they have a church affiliation, but they're not going. They're not in church. And, of course, whether they're born again or not is another matter. But that's a challenge, a cultural challenge to keep in front of them. What do you guys feel like are some big challenges that you're still facing today, 8 years in? I mean, we know the big ones that are in common. You always got staff things you've got to be working with. You've got community needs to be met. Of course, there's financial stuff, just like we talked about. There's all those pressures right. and demands, stresses on it. Is there beyond evangelism and your community groups? Is there something you guys are working to tackle?
So there's something yet to be developed, and that is involvement just in missions. We're at a point now where I feel like we have addressed immediate things, internal things. I think we have the foundation of health.
Gotten healthier, stronger, the base.
Right. And even the leadership and all of that stuff's beginning to settle in. And so we're not late, but it's time to start looking outward and just figuring out what does outreach and missions look like, and having our people involved in those things. And my view on that is it's one thing for me to have a passion, conviction for something, and then just push my people to love what I love. And they might do it for me, but their heart's not in it, and that's really a drag sustainability-wise. I think instead, in the same way you raise up leaders, and I tell our church this, like, what's your heart beating for? What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? Let's talk. Let's figure that out. It may not be something we can pursue, but there may be something there. And we need people to be willing to own aspects of that. And as that happens, we'll begin to follow the desires that the Lord has laid on their hearts in terms of outreach, and it's just beginning to happen, but it's yet to be developed.
The area of missions has been that's been a big push for us for a number of years now. And the good thing here for us is the DNA to do missions was there. The passion, the desire, the activity, the generosity was there. So in a sense, that made it a little bit easier for us. We weren't starting from scratch, but we could take all those elements and begin to focus them and redirect them and push them into certain areas. So we're blessed in that.
Yeah, I probably hold us back a little bit on missions because I'm just at Richland Creek. We were everybody. I mean, we had 300 to 500 people each year involved in various types of trips, whether it's a couple of years, a year, a week, month. We had great missions, international missions partnerships, but also being a seminary town, being around a lot of missionaries, I just have a genuine concern about being the next guided tour through town for a week that the local church can ride you through.
And we had similar thoughts too. We're just going to go and do one more vacation Bible school, and kids will raise their hand and get saved. Next week they'll do another one, do the same thing, get saved again, or we're going to go build a small building, call it a church, but there's no pastor, no Christians, no to speak of, or no leadership, that sort of thing.
That's what makes, we were talking about Joe Carroll before this. That's what makes his work in our bill so good is he doesn't necessarily need American support. He wants that indigenous church to grow off the giftedness of its people and the generosity of its people. They've got to sustain themselves in terms of leadership, financial, all those things. And it's so underwhelming. You don't get cool points as a church, go over there and do that. But it's real, and that sort of thing I think will last. And so we're looking for
those are harder to promote with the church because they can't see it, but we've got some similar things. We're part of a organization. We sponsor a mission organization called Good Churches. Has a very similar model, but in India. But these aren't places we're going to be taking teams to go and visit. Right. These aren't guys you're going to be meeting face to face. They're indigenous pastors. Some of them you're only going to know their first name because they're trying to protect them, and that sort of thing. But they're training up those guys, for a bunch of reasons. I mean, we could talk about that for a while, but for a lot of reasons, does it make sense to pay the salary and the insurance of an American, teach him the language for 5 years, get him culturally acclimated, take him over there with his kids and family, gets burned out in 2 or 3 years because there's no good opportunities for his kids in school and social and blah blah blah, and then they come home, or do we? Do we pump into these guys and say, how can we help? But we're doing similar things in different places, really Guatemala, India there, similar philosophy. And the good thing is, I'm pontificating, you get involved with a guy like Joe, and it's not a one-way street. This becomes a two-way street. Like, okay, now teach us stuff. We're learning stuff here.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
Two of our guys went to visit and just encourage Joe and the church and the family there. And they come back with the sentiment they're doing some things better than we do them.
That's right. I'm
telling
you.
What can we learn? What can we do? All right, let me shift gears real quick because I know we're probably going to run short on time if everybody's still listening. Wanted you to engage.
Don't put us on 1.25. I get there. I want you 1.5.
Yeah,
it'll go fast.
Speed us up. I wanted to engage in a little bit of local gossip here for a minute, Alan. I know you get a network. You know a bunch of guys around here, guys you serve with and everything. So tell us what you're seeing. Tell us what you see. What's good happening in the area that you know about? We're talking about what we see from you guys, Cloverdale and everything. What else do you see? What's happening around here that's good?
I see this church being a church that I don't know if revitalization is the right word, but rebuilding, reforming, regrouping, whatever. I remember Calvary went through some turbulent water, and it's so cool to see how solid and great this church is, and y'all's ministries just really beginning to flourish. They've been here, but they're popping, they're rolling. It's found its groove and it's going. So I think I brag on this church all the time. I've always bragged on Chad Hickson at Rehoboth Baptist. I love Chad.
Man, yeah, good stuff. I was at associational pastors meeting yesterday. And Chad wasn't there, but Slade was there.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about church stuff and stuff they're working on. I thought, man, that's good. That's solid. That's
Absolutely.
sound.
And I think they just went brought on some elders recently,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's just that's good leadership, and it seems like they've done it fairly peacefully.
I think
you know,
so.
and the people understand. And Chad's just gifted and been an influence in my life. But
Another example of longevity too.
absolutely,
I mean, he's put some years in now. You know, certainly he's got a long way to go to be where his predecessor was, just in terms of sheer years.
Right.
But he can do it.
he sure can.
You know, and if he'll stay there and do it, then who knows what'll happen.
And he should. He's in a good spot. They got a good pastor. It's great. But then I'm really encouraged by all that's happening at Memphis Baptist Church. They're growing. They're reaching people.
I don't know much about Memphis. I guess just geographically we're a little disconnected. I mean, I think the world of Jim. I think Jim's
Yeah.
a real deal. I mean, he's as authentic a guy as you're going to
He
meet.
sure is.
But I don't know really much about
Yeah.
church stuff.
Man,
I saw
they
they had a cool conference this
That's right.
weekend.
That's right.
Wisdom conference, and I thought if I
I
could have
love
gotten there, I
that.
would love to have heard some of it. But
Yeah, I love the wisdom books. I'm glad they're getting that, and so they're reaching families. I can't remember the number. I was talking to Clay Greathouse, one of their pastors, and he told me the numbers of just new members they're having, and it's good. I think it seems like real growth, and I think Brother Jim's feeding them really well. I'm just glad these families are joining a healthy church.
yeah.
So just a lot of good stuff. And I do want to brag on Evan Cohen's church plant. That's
Yeah, tell us what's happening there. We were just curious. I saw this merger happening with. All right, so I probably should be asking Evan.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell me, how do you get a Reformed Baptist church plant merging with what was a Methodist?
yeah. I said, so you're a Methodist now? And he said no. No, I asked him. I said, "What are you going to say when people ask, are you Methodist?" He said, "I'm going to tell them no."
This is Wesley and Whitfield all coming together here.
Yeah, the short version of it's really cool. Getting over that initial hump as a church plant's tough. You're out of space. You need more people to be able to afford more space. You need more space to get more people to be able to afford more space. How do we ever get over this? And he and I talked, and I said, "Man, look, let's pray. Y'all pray with your leaders." I feel like he's leading them really well. Pray. The Lord will provide. And sure enough, some time went on, and Bill over at Northside said, "I just feel like the Lord has laid this on our heart to extend this offer to y'all, to use our building, our campus, our stuff."
Now I'm guessing Northside was not affiliated anymore with UMC. I guess
It hasn't
never.
been.
Always an independent
Yeah,
Methodist.
I don't know about never, but it hadn't been since I was a kid.
Okay,
It wasn't.
so it's been
it
an
wasn't
independent
yeah.
Methodist church. Okay.
Yeah, so they're merging together, and they're doing it carefully. It's not an instant thing, and it may not.
But it'd be one church. It's not going to
It would be Sojourner Church.
Okay, it's not going to be Sojourners meeting at Northside and Northside having their own service. It's going to be Sojourners there on what was Northside's campus.
As I understand it, yes, they would be assimilated into Sojourner Church, adopting
Man, that's huge.
their beliefs.
That's a huge move.
Their bylaws, all those things. It's very big.
Now, what about leadership for the school?
What do you mean?
The Christian Academy, will that continue
Yeah.
to function?
It'd continue to be Northside. The school would. I think Evan may continue bivocationally teaching there.
Gotcha.
But he certainly is not undertaking that monster. So
So
But
their
it's really
transition will
cool.
be back to Dothan then, not out of Headland.
well, and it's kind of neat because it's on the north side of Dothan, and you can dip into Houston County and Henry County, and I just think the Lord could be in that. But Evan holds it loosely, and he's shared with his people, hey, if this doesn't work, it's okay, but it's a sign to keep trusting the Lord, just keep following Him, and so they're in that getting to know each other window just to see is this wise, is the Lord in this or not, and so far so good.
Good.
But they're being so careful with it. But it's really amazing to see how that's going because church planting that's no joke. I'd rather do revitalization than church planting.
You hear anything else? Any other good stuff happening around?
Yeah, I'm
You don't
sure
have
of
to
it, but
give sneak previews to anything that's not official yet. Just we're working through right now. Church just voted to move forward with church plant / replant in Ozark.
Yeah.
So we're going to be moving forward with that. We got some specific action to take in a couple weeks in members meeting to go
Great.
ahead and purchase the property and move ahead. So
That's cool.
We'll be starting into all that very soon. Developing a team to send, a plant team, and start training up those people who are going to go and form that congregation from the get-go. So some good stuff coming that way.
Great. Will this be the first church plant for Calvary?
No, we have a history of church planting, actually.
Okay.
Now, this will be the first one that I would say that the people of Calvary plant.
Yeah.
We've had church planters that have come out of us that we've supported and that are sending church. And then done a lot of financial support towards. Actually, I think we've done 4 in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So, but this will be the first one where we're actually trying to send more than a pastor. We're trying to send a church to be the church planter. So 25, 30 people.
Yeah.
That was
That's
us
so
to become a new church planter.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
love
big
that.
evolution for us on that.
It is.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, but a very different philosophical. We're not sending a guy good luck and you and your wife and family will support you and write you checks until you get that church going. I mean, Charles emphasized this at our last members meeting. This is not one person planning. This is Calvary. This is us.
Yeah.
We're all in this. Everybody.
I love that.
So
So
what's
our
it gonna
elders will
take?
be the elders of that church plant until we constitute them by themselves. Once
That's
they're
right.
able to be their church and be everything autonomous. Until then, Calvary's leadership is going to be their leadership. So it's going to be us.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And so we've been prepping the church for that sort of thing, being willing to lose good people, not lose them, send them.
That's right.
We want to send out our best. It even came up in our personnel committee. We're talking about future things and salaries and stuff like that, that this may mean a 10% decrease in budget giving to this ministry because maybe 10% of our givers are there. That would be a large number, but okay, that's fine. This is what we're going to do, and it has impact down the line too. Where we meet, and we're really trying to impress on our folks growth by planting, not just growth by that'd be another discussion we have sometime. Like what you experienced at North Richland
At Richland Creek.
Richland Creek. Sorry,
Yeah.
Multiple services versus can we fill this building up, and then people start getting a little uncomfortable with how tight things are. I said, look, let's plant a church.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's move out here. Let's move out to this way.
I think that's
or
better
revitalize,
long-term.
because there's churches in this community, and we're praying to that end, all the time. Or there's some churches in our community that need to keep their doors open. They may not ever be huge, but those communities need a healthy church. And can we help? Can we be part of that revitalization? So, anyway, well, Bryan, Alan, I appreciate you coming and talking. I thought it'd be helpful for our people to get to know you a little bit, to hear from you. And maybe if some of the Cloverdale people are listening, it'll be encouraging to them too, and they'll know what a treasure they have, and will be reminded and recommit themselves to praying for you and your family, supporting you. And I hope you feel like you're in a spot now where you could be there a long time.
That's right. I remember words you said in one of our pastors' cohorts to all of us, to all the men there. You said, if I had any advice for y'all, it would be this: stay. And those words have echoed forever. So I appreciate you. And if Cloverdale can ever do anything for Calvary, let us know. Partnering with you, helping, doing whatever, just let us know.
Yeah, likewise. We appreciate you. Appreciate your church, and we will be praying for Cloverdale and for you.
Thank you.
The rest of the team there.
Yep. Thanks, Alan. I'm going to try to do the out better than I did the in because I hadn't done it in so long. So
We're out of
here we go.
practice.
Here's the out. For God, for Dothan, for the world.